And then the question that gets begged is, whose responsibility is that? Is it the schools? It's not their money. They're sort of doling it all out, but they're helping their athletes. Is it the parents? I mean, they may not even know how much money is coming in. Again, at the end of the day, it's the athlete's responsibility. But now, unlike a pro, you're talking about an 18, 19, 20-year-old. You're still an adult, though, and that's got to fall on your shoulders. But 100%, there's got to be way better financial literacy that is not non-existent, but almost non-existent.
But to what degree, though, do you want to empower the athletes to have a little bit of knowledge with that, but not too much, because we don't want you thinking outside the box and thinking you're better than us and that you don't need us anymore. Like, we need you to need us because you're our asset. Is there some truth in that?
100%. I mean, it's one hand washing the other constantly. I mean, you've been a pro. You've seen this at certain levels. There's always hangers on. There's always somebody trying to get in your pockets for something. There's always someone trying to sell you something, and it's a tough lifestyle. Everybody sort of puts athletes up on a pedestal and looks at them as heroes. But from the vantage point that I have, I can tell you it is a rough life. You've got to be really careful all the time. Trust has got to be a really difficult thing to earn. There's stories of people who've even had financial difficulties with their own parents.
Jack Johnson, when his parents.
Jack Johnson is the example that always comes to mind because he was a Blackhawk. I know all about that story. It's brutal.
Well, let's recap it a little bit, because from what I understand, his parents were his acting managers, were they not?
They were his managers. They were his agents. Again, I don't have any insider information. I've just read about the story. But it's one of those things where I've had other clients tell me, I don't trust anyone, but I do trust my parents. So I've made them power of attorney. And Jack Johnson's the story that I tell them, like, listen, I'm sure Jack's dad or mom took him to the rink all the time, but look what happened. Sometimes there's this mentality of, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. If it wasn't for me waking up at 4:00 in the morning to take you to the rink all the time. And so you owe me for that, right? And it's a tough mentality.
Did they just spend like goons or not invest, or they took them to the cleaners kind of deal?
I think it was a combination of both. Just loans that weren't repaid, advances for certain things, investments that didn't work out. But I mean, he was basically pushed to bankruptcy.
I mean, at least he figured it out halfway through his career and had a little bit to kind of recoup. If you're at the end of your career and you find that out, like a Brian Berard, you're in real trouble.
It's brutal. It's a brutal world.
When you talk about predators too, like you had a really good article that I was reading before you came down, but that these athletes are predator or being predatorized. Is that the word? God,
preyed on.
Preyed on. Thank you. Taking too many pucks off the head. But they're being preyed on from anything from like a small car accident to people wanting to get into their finances, and short of it being Bitcoin, every investment you're going to make sucks. For I got this restaurant, I got this book club. Mm-hmm. Like what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, again, you've got to know that everyone knows who you are, right? Your face is a public one. And, in the NBA, it's hard to hide when you're 7 feet tall. And so you've got to just be really careful in terms of who you trust, sort of releasing trust in very small segments, doing your research, not necessarily taking advice from the person whose stall is right next to you, or even your coaches who may not know any better, and just being super, super careful.
So you'd advise little, for lack of a better term, little shit test along the way to see, okay, you pass this one on the next one and kind of going.
You got to make people earn your trust. I mean, you are you must assume that you are a target for everyone around you until you can, for yourself, determine that that person is someone I can trust. I tell people all the time, I mean, there's not even pictures of the people that I work with in my office. You would have no idea who I work with unless I told you, and I will never tell you. I've gone into people's offices where it's lined with, all these pictures of the attorney or the financial advisor with their arm around someone. Some people market that. I think that confidentiality and privacy is of utmost concern. That's just my priority. And if that's something that's important to people, I know I'm not alone. If that's important to you as the athlete, then look for that. If you think that you want to be with someone who's got your picture plastered everywhere, then look for that. But you've got to be the one making that determination.
Love him or hate him, Piers Morgan. He did an interview with Cristiano Ronaldo, I think about a year ago. And one of the really great pieces of that was he was asking basically about this. You're being preyed upon by a lot of people. You're in the media. You're one of the most famous men in the world. How many people do you actually trust? And he had a really cool, dramatic 4 or 5 second pause, and he says, Four people. That's it. Obviously, Pierce isn't one of them, but like, isn't that insane that a guy that successful has 4 people that he trusts?
It's amazing that it's 4. You would think that it would be less than that, because at the end of the day, again, people evolve, people change. Just because you trust someone, I mean, think of your friends growing up, right? Some of them turned out to be great, lifelong friends. Others sort of fell away. Others made bad decisions in their lives. But you've got to understand that their bad decisions will reflect on you as a public figure. Their decisions to the things that you're doing could affect you financially. If you're investing in them or relying on them for financial advice, that could go sideways. You've just, I think, always got to be questioning people and trust as few people as you possibly can. Even your own agent, right? They've got their own financial stake in your success, and that person's close to you to the point where you're talking to them all the time. You've got to remember that person. I hear stories all the time of people retiring and then never hearing from their agent again. And that was the person you relied on your whole career. That's brutal.
There's a title, and I'm going to be careful with this one because I know that you have a bunch of different hats that you wear, but the word consultant to me has been more and more popular over the past 20, 30 years. And from what I've learned over that period of time is that what consultant does is it removes the blame for anything that's going to go wrong. It's not, I'm not your accountant. I'm not your agent. I'm not any of these other things where I could be implicit if anything goes down. I'm just a guy that gives you advice. And I think a lot of times that gets confused with a trusted source.
Listen, when I graduated undergraduate from college, half of my friends became consultants. They knew about as much about the world as my 16-year-old daughter. It's just a title you wear that now all of a sudden, you know, the free advice where you're, you know, sort of just chatting around the table and giving your opinions for free. Now when I pay you for it, you go from being my buddy to being my consultant. That's the difference.
If you had to predict, like with Ronaldo, to go back to him for a second, when he says he has 4 people he trusts, who do you think those 4 would be if you had to take a wild guess?
Georgina
is I think are they married now?
No.
Didn't they split? No, it was the Russian, Ivana Shenko.
Yeah, he has kids with, and he has kids with Georgina as well. But from what I understand, I found this one fascinating, that when he went over to play in the Saudi League, you're not allowed to live together unless you're married, unless you're Cristiano Ronaldo.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you think Georgina...
I know that she's got to be one of them. I presume that whoever his agent is probably that person, especially considering the ridiculous numbers he signed to be in the Saudi League. Probably his mom, because I know that they're very close. And then who knows who, you know, maybe his friend from when he was growing up. But you know, I know he's very, very close with his mom. I presume his girlfriend, and then two other ex people in his life.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, when you bring up names like Ronaldo, Messi, Gretzky, Lemieux, Crosby, you know, take your pick. Are there some names and some talent that are just too big to fail, where they're not at risk of any of these horror stories that we've talked about?
No one's too big to fail. You know, this is not General Motors where the government's going to step in and save you. I mean, I grew up in Chicago. When you look at Walter Payton's been divorced. Michael Jordan's been divorced.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady's been divorced. And had he married Bridget Moynihan, they would have gotten divorced. It's brutal. No one is too big to fail.
Is it accurate? I saw a quote a while ago, but it was like, smart men don't marry. Is there some truth behind that?
I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, I think to Dave's point, I mean, there is love. Love evolves, right? Love is not not to get poetic here, but love is not something that you see on a movie. I mean, you know, love evolves. Your relationship over time evolves. It is not this passionate, you know, want to jump on each other every time you come from home sort of thing. It is a mature relationship between two people. And I think Wayne Gretzky's been married for forever, and he's a good example of a superstar making it work. But for every Wayne Gretzky, there's a Michael Jordan. I believe it. I mean, I've been married a really long time. Has it been a fairy tale the whole time? No, but we work out our issues, and I love my wife a lot, and we're going to be married, I hope, a really long time.
Hey, if you enjoyed what you just saw, we do new clips every single day, twice a day on the Clips channel. You see clips right here. And beside Dave's crotch, we have a full-length show every single Sunday, right by my hand.
Click right here.